Hello friends, today's lecture is special lecture symbolic expression, and in the studio we have Manisha Sharma with us as sign language expert, and the theme of today's lecture is cinema and the leaders of the Indian national movement. And in the earlier lecture regarding this particular theme, we talked about some of the important leaders of the national movement, how they contributed to the development of cinema through their efforts. And we talked about Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who in a way saw the initial films as the Swadeshi cinema, and the kind of encouragement and support which was given to the initial filmmakers. Dada Saheb Phalke, who is considered as the father of Indian cinema, he was being supported by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and his films, they were considered to be the Swadeshi films, and his newspaper Kesari carried out regular features with regard to the films which were made at that point of time by Dada Saheb Phalke. We also talked about Lala Lajpat Rai, who was also an important leader, and how in the various legislative assembly debates Lala Lajpat Rai raised the issues regarding concerning the censorship of the Indian films, and how the preferences which were being given to the British films in the framework of the British imperial preferences. And he was also very well aware regarding the Indian Cinematograph Committee report, and he raised some kinds of concern with regard to the appointment of T. Rangacharya, who was the chairman of this committee, and later he realized that the kind of report which was submitted by T. Rangacharya was in consonance with regard to his own ideas or to the national movement as well. So he in a way asked some kind of reprieve or some kind of apology with regard to the kind of reservations which he had in terms of the appointment of T. Rangacharya of the ICC committee. And we also see that he raised the concerns regarding such kind of issues which were concerning the censorship. We also talked about Nehru and how he was not supportive or expressive in terms of supporting the Indian film industry, though he gave his message to the souvenir in 1939. And now we'll talk about some of the other leaders like Satyamurthy or Sardar Patel, and how Gandhi, in a way, though he was not very instrumental or very supportive of the films, but how the filmmakers, they in a way wanted Gandhi to support their cause. And we see that how Satyamurthy tried to use the documentaries as an instrument of propaganda for the nationalist causes, and he predicted that cinema would play a significant role in the society as well, and with such a high rate of literacy, its influence was destined to be strong. So he was a believer in the framework of cinema as an instrument of propaganda, and he also made a film in 1934 to appeal the voters before the city elections of Madras, and got it screened in a number of cinema houses. And he hoped that a synthesis between the film producers in India, directors and the leaders of the national movement, it will also happen. And we also see that he was the founder president of the South Indian Film Chambers of Commerce, which was established on 15th April 1939, and it was an umbrella organization for safeguarding the business interests of the producers, distributors, studio owners and the exhibitors of films. And in 1937, before the elections of the provincial legislature, Satyamurthy produced another propaganda film in Madras, but its certification was rejected. So we find that how the colonial censors, they were very instrumental in terms of seeing that how the films, they were trying to in a way weave the theme of the national movement in their films. And he also provided a lot of support to the film directors and writers to produce films. Satyamurthy encouraged the Indian freedom struggle, and we find that encouraged by such kind of measures, K. Subramaniam made Seva Sadan, Tyag Bhumi and Manasankarakshan in 1945 in Tamil. And some of these films, they were being produced at a time when freedom struggle was gearing itself to defy the mighty British and to initiate their final assault in the form of do or die in the Quit India movement of 1942. So we find that these kinds of films by other filmmakers like K. Subramaniam we talked about, and how his films like Seva Sadan and others, in which he made Manasam Rakshanam, which was a film in defense of honor, which was made by him. All of them, they also in a way contributed to the ideas of patriotism and concerning the national movement. And how we see that other leaders like Gandhi, who was hero of a large number of documentaries and whose life and philosophy was an inspiration to so many films, was averse to this kind of a medium. And Gandhi's reply to the questionnaire which was sent by the Indian Cinematograph Committee in 1927 to know his new views about the state of Indian cinema was, he replied that even if I was so minded, I should be unfit to answer your questionnaire, as I have never been to a cinema. But even to an outsider, evil that it has done and is doing is patent. Good, if it has done at all, remains to be proved. So we find that how Gandhi was critical of the films, and he refused to in a way answer the questionnaire which was sent by ICC. And this Indian Cinematograph Committee, which sent this kind of a questionnaire, did not get any response from Gandhi in terms of any idea which he could provide with regard to the films. And Gandhi, we also see that on the Silver Jubilee celebrations of Indian cinema in 1938, Gandhi again was requested to send a message for the official souvenir, and Gandhi's secretary replied very tersely, as a rule Gandhi gives messages only on rare occasion, and this is only for a cause whose virtue is ever doubtful. As for cinema industry, he has least interest in it, and one may not expect a word of appreciation from him. So we find that Gandhi's ideas with regard to the films was such where he considered itself to be some kind of a vice, like gambling, etc. And Gandhi did not support the cause of cinema in that sense. And we find that one of the filmmakers, earlier he was not a filmmaker, but he was associated with Bombay Chronicle, a journalist, but later K. Abbas turned into a filmmaker as well. He was writing constantly in his newspaper about the films, and he wrote an open letter to Gandhi where he requested him to accept the positive contribution of cinema in the entertainment industry and its utility as well as a tool to further the cause of the national movement. But this letter did not create any impact on Gandhi. K. Abbas talked about various kinds of issues in this particular letter. He raised certain kinds of concern in this particular letter, and he in a way communicated that he was very pained to find that the cinema, which was mentioned in a slightly contemptuous terms, and how it was being compared to gambling, sutta and horse racing. And he writes that it was an art, cinema is an art, a medium of expression, and therefore it is unfair to condemn. And because of questionable character of some of the films, and he argues that books are not to be condemned because they include treatises on pornography. So he was trying to draw some kinds of ideas that we just cannot criticize any kind of a medium if there are certain deficiencies in that medium. If we find good books, then we also find bad books. It does not mean that books themselves are some kind of a wrong kind of a thing in the society. So Abbas basically was trying to communicate these kinds of ideas to Gandhi, that all those kinds of inventions which have been made with regard to the wireless, radio, aeroplanes, etc., they are not bad in themselves. Though many people, those who are unscrupulous in nature, they have abused and exploited even such noble institutions such as religion and patriotism. And he also talks about that when you talk about religion, it is not bad simply because millions of human beings, they have been killed in the name of religion. And patriotism is still a virtue even if jingoes have waged imperialist wars for the supposedly patriotic purposes. So Abbas in a way is talking about the social and the educational activities which are carried on through films in foreign countries, education, news, general knowledge, anti-crime, political information. Abbas talks about that all these kinds of things one can find in the films, and how the general knowledge or news kind of items, they will provide you a lot of information, and with this information you can have some kind of a competence for various kinds of endeavors in which one wants to engage in. Then they can also be used in the framework of education. Not only cinema was not only entertainment in that sense. And he also talks about that how some patriots, they were endeavoring to produce a film record on his own inspiring life. That means the Gandhi's life and the national movement which was led by Gandhi has indirectly caused much purification and regeneration in the realm of the Indian cinema. And he says that believes that it is not an unpardonable impertinence to depict Gandhi as leading the nation even in realm of motion picture art. So we find that how more decent people, they have to take interest in the film, as Abbas talks about, so that it becomes an instrument of social good rather than a tamasha. But we also see that how these people may be discouraged and kept away if you and other great men like you continue to count cinema among such vices as gambling and drinking. And he also requests Gandhi that Bapu, in your heart there is not room for prejudice. Give me or give this little toy of ours, which is cinema, which is not so useless, and it looks a little to your attention, and bless it with a smile of toleration. So Abbas was in a way asking Gandhi to be tolerant towards this particular kind of a medium and provide the blessings so that cinema could thrive. But not only Abbas, we also find that there were other filmmakers. They were also not very happy in that sense with the kind of aversion which was shown by Gandhi, and many of them sometimes they became frustrated as well. And Baburao Patel, who was the editor of Film India, he wrote that let the champion of the Ridra Narayan come down and meet us, and we shall try to convince him, or to be convinced. Surely as workers in the film field we are not worse than poor untouchables for whom old Mahatma's heart so often bleeds, and if he thinks we are, more reason why he should come to our rescue. So Baburao Patel also raised these kinds of concern, and he was asking Gandhi that he was also some kind of a protector of the Daridra Narayan, and he was also protector of the untouchables as well. So he is raising questions that the people, those who were working in the film industry, they were not the untouchables, and Gandhi should provide them his blessings to them so that they prosper. And he also believes that the apostle of truth, Gandhi, in a way believes cinema to be an evil, but he has yet to see the films, and he can't know the truth unless he experiences these films himself. So he raises these kind of questions, whether Gandhi will begin with Achut, a film which was made in 1939-40, and Baburao Patel asked Chandulal Shah to wait with the film tins at Gandhi's doorsteps to seek his blessings for the film industry. So we find that it was very improbable that these letters or these kind of pleadings created any kind of impact on Gandhi, as it has been reported that the solitary film, or the only film which was seen by Gandhi in his entire lifetime, was Ram Rajya by Vijay Bhatt, which was made in 1943. So we find that with a number of pleadings or number of requests by the various filmmakers or the people, those who are associated with the film industry, we find that Gandhi did not engage himself with the films, and he did not write much with regard to the films which could be seen in the framework of any kind of support to the film industry. Rather, whenever messages they were being sought from him, Gandhi was critical of cinema. And despite the kind of aversion which Gandhi had to films, we find that a number of films they were being made on Gandhi. Gandhi was regularly depicted or projected on the Indian screen, and in terms of not only the documentaries, but also in the framework of the topicals, which were the small films which were made in those times. And we find that Gandhi's popularity in a way led to the apprehensions of the British government, and how it tried to control every media giving encouragement or coverage to him. And we find that British, they excised scenes and dialogue showing a resemblance to Gandhi's philosophy and the ideals which were there. And we find that from the National Archives of India, some of the files, they in a way try to convey that in relation to the exhibition of a film which is related to the release of Gandhi from the prison, Home Minister J.A.T. Horn, he writes that films should refrain from making a hero of Gandhi, that is, there should not be any frequent pictures of him. So how the British government was scared of Gandhi's popularity and they did not want that he should come on the screen, and that is why we find that so many documentaries and topicals, they were being banned, they were not being allowed to be exhibited. And we also see that the script of the films, it should be austere and objective, and Gandhi and the other leaders, they should not be overdone in future. This is what was being argued by the officials of the British government. And if one sees the files from the National Archives of India, then we find that R. Tottenham, who was the additional secretary, he said that the film and commentary is calculated to excite the extreme sympathy with Gandhi and implies criticism of government for having kept him in custody for so long. So we find that British government was worried about the exhibition of the films relating to Gandhi in India, and they were also in a way worried that these kinds of films, they should not be exported abroad as well. And regarding the export of the two versions of a film relating to Gandhi to America Intelligence Bureau, Home Department replied, Madras CID have stated that film entitled Gandhi contains much propaganda and have expressed view that both its English and Indian versions were unsuitable for export. So we find the strict censorship of the films not only reflects the colonial contempt for the ideas of liberty, freedom and self-determination as late as 1944, but also the apprehensions towards the charisma of Gandhi. Another important leader one can talk about was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, when the makers of Brandy Ki Bottle, which was in Marathi and Hindi 1939 production by Master Vinayak, and how Patel was asked to support their troubled film project, which was based on a campaign for prohibition of liquor. And we find that how Patel in a way obliged the filmmaker. He recorded a speech for the film where the evils of drinking liquor, they were being condemned, and how the cause of the prohibition was supported. So this particular film, we find that the speech of Sardar Patel was the opening scene of this particular film. Apart from that, we also see that from the Bombay port, Patel also helped in securing the release of a smuggled film print on Subhash Chandra Bose and INA, or Azad Hind Fauj. And this particular film was later screened for the national movement leaders in the Regal Theatre in Connaught Place in New Delhi in 1940s. And a lot of initiative was taken by the producer Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and the help which was provided by the Indian Motion Pictures Producers Association, IMPA, which is a continuous body which is working even now in terms of film production. And a documentary titled Netaji Subhash in 1947, which was based on the life of Subhash Chandra Bose, was produced, which also included the smuggled footage of that time. And apart from Vallabhbhai Patel, we also see that other leaders, they also supported this cause. If we see Subhash Chandra Bose, who believed in the propaganda value of the films, and he pre-arranged the documentary reporting of the accomplishments of the Azad Hind Fauj. And we also see that Patel also inaugurated the film Achut in 1940, which was directed by Chandulal Shah. And in his speech, he referred to the vital importance of cinema in the life of the nation, and he stressed the necessity of using the immense potentialities of film for the welfare of the country. And we find that this particular speech, which was being given on this particular film by Sardar Patel, it was included in this particular film. And the issue of untouchability was very close to Gandhi as well, and how these kinds of leaders, they also supported these kinds of issues as well. And when you see the women leaders like Sarojini Naidu and Rameshwari Nehru, how they also played an important role. And in an interview with Babu Rao Patel, Sarojini Naidu said that cinema can do to a whole people what a loving and devoted wife do to an erring husband, and to root out the superstitions, to make people rational and make them better informed, and to give useful entertainment. And how cinema can be very important, or it can be best used as it is being done in some of the American short films as well. and if the Indian film industry is to justify and fulfill its purpose, it must plan on sound principles, and all help should be given to the film industry. And she had a lot of love and hope for the film industry and believed in the harmonious fusion of the East and West. And she wanted India to absorb all the benefits of the Western civilization and yet keep her spiritual heritage as well. So she says that in her scheme of things, films have a positive place. Apart from Sarojini Naidu, we also see that some of the women leaders like Rameshwari Nehru, she expressed her ideas in Gandhi's weekly Harijan, where she said that I beg to add a word in support of appeal made by a correspondent for the restraint over the modern talkies by a national government, published in the Harijan of January 5, 1947. I am not a frequent visitor of cinema pictures, but little I have seen of them has convinced me that whatever she, a writer of the letter, has said about evil effects of these pictures on morals of young men and women is perfectly true. And how this cinema habit is going, and the real danger lies in the fact that it is penetrating villages, and I would say that these pictures are big boulders in the path of nations' moral progress and the strength of the mighty elephants, and is certainly needed for their removal. And she says that the danger springs from the fact that production of cinema picture lies in hands of money-making men who, with a few exceptions, run industry with profit motive. So such kind of concerns, they were being raised by the leaders, that how people, those who were in a way interested in only making money, they were not concerned with the ethics and the morals which should be there in the society, and they are making such kind of cellular projections which are not in a way suitable for the people, and how people can go astray by, in a way, watching these films. So she also says that there is a great deal of talk of the nationalization these days. In my opinion, the nationalization of cinema industry is needed more than anything else. In any case, strict control by government is essential. So she has this kind of an argument that how the government, she has to in a way participate, where they have to regulate the pictures, they have to censor the pictures so that they cannot have any kind of detrimental effect on the masses. And the people, those who have argued that the national leaders, they were not able to fully realize the potential of cinema as an instrument of propaganda for the cause of freedom. And they also failed to realize that the Indian cinema was in fact reflecting on the political and the ideological aspirations of the people and the nation's need for independence and the liberty. And that it was developing its own expression of nationalist position as well. So we find that when you try to see the critics, that they in a way were trying to criticize the national movement leaders, then they were also trying to see that the national movement leaders, they were concerned in other things, and they were not largely concerned with cinema. And film industry was yearning for all sorts of political support in their resistance against the increasing government control over the raw stock, tax and censorship. All these kinds of issues, they were concerning the film industry, and Indian national leadership could not take up these issues as it was being demanded by the leaders. But we also have to see that the leaders, it has also been argued that they fail to empathize and appreciate the film industry's concern with the politics, despite the perpetual censoring of the Indian films having the political overtones. But when is trying to defend the Indian leaders, we find that whatever contribution was made by them shall be acknowledged and appreciated, as they were also not very well versed in the cinematic medium, and they lacked the understanding of its potentiality as an instrument of propaganda during the colonial rule. And they also imbibed and reflected the ideals of the national movement and wanted to adhere to those ideals. And to use cinema for the cause of the national movement was not in their scheme of things. So when we tend to, in a way, see these kinds of contributions of the national movement within the context of the colonial period, where the colonial censors, they were ready to throttle all sorts of aspirations of the national leaders and the national movement as well, then we'll find that definitely they made a definite some kind of a positive contribution to cinema. So with this, I'd like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.